What's going on, everyone? Sid Gordon here with the Core Medical Podcast. And today, I'm actually a little bit nervous talking to this guy because he's just kind of like, you know, if you had a list of things that would be categorized as a hero, this guy would fill pretty much every slot. Um, so today we have Luke Kennedy, amazing man. And Luke, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. And I those were some heavy words. I think I don't think I'm worthy of those, but I appreciate your love so much.
Absolutely. So, guys, for those of you that don't know Luke, I'm getting to know him and been really looking into him over the last few days up to this podcast. And wow, what a bunch of accomplishments. And I like to start these podcasts off just by you kind of taking the stage, giving us a high level of your background, kind of where you grew up, where you're from, and then we can get into the real meat and potatoes once people get to know your come up from a younger age.
Yeah, of course. I'm known the most I'm known for is my swimming and water polo upbringings. It's a fact. I swam more than I walked till this day. It's more. And I grew up in Chicago. I went to an old boys Catholic high school where you either play football or you play water polo, and that's what I did. Played Division 1 finals, NCAA finals for water polo. Then became a professional water polo player in Italy and Greece and Turkey. Then came back and became investment banker. I graduated in math, so that was a natural transition. And when the economy kind of tanked, I became a cop and then became a state trooper and then a Fed. And then I got assigned to State Department overseas.
Well, I mean, geez, I guess you are checking those boxes that I said because I mean, that is quite the pedigree right there. How did you decide that you wanted to go in the direction of policing back then? You said California Highway Patrol, is that what you said?
Yes, sir. So
Yes.
it was Chicago first
Yep.
and then California after.
What drew
Well,
what drew you to that? Was it just a stable position and you're a big, strong guy, or?
this is gonna sound. I mean, you're making it sound as good as it's not because I went from Chicago to California because it was just too cold, man. I
That's why I'm in
The
Florida.
true story is I put my coffee on the top of my car one day, and by the time I unlocked the door and turned on the car, the top of that coffee was solid ice. And I said, you know what, man, I'm gone. What else is there? So I just wanted to drive motorcycles. I always had a thing for speed, and that was my dream job to become a motorcycle unit trooper. And Cali at the time was the place. I don't want to say it was hiring; it was just easier to get in than other places because this is the first year of Obama administration when they will only hire veterans for police positions,
Hmm.
and or it became at the time you need to have a college degree. At the time you need to like really, really, really score high to be on the top of the list.
Hmm.
And it was, I mean,
Things have
as you
changed a
see
little
today,
bit.
those people,
Things
yeah,
have
and
changed.
those,
Yeah, exactly.
but the thing is, those people didn't last. I looked back, and people who at the time got hired were in the agency or in the field for 3 to 4 years and quit because they really never really wanted to be a police officers. They just that was a job to get because they were more qualified than people who wanted to serve.
So, weird things happen on this podcast, and a few of them have already come into play. There's a Nick Case book sitting in front of me, which we're going to get into here shortly towards the end of the podcast. But so Luke is from Chicago. We have a lot of people on this podcast that know Mel Chancey, and every single one of them, other than Mel, went in a direction of law enforcement. You have Chris Bayless, Lou Velosi, yourself, and
Yes.
prior to this podcast, I said, you know a guy named Mel Chancey, And I'll let Luke tell the rest of the story here because it's mind blowing. The stuff that happens with me and Mel and the way things come full circle in our life, which I can tell in a bit, is wild. But this is an amazing story right here. So go on, Luke. Take it
So
away.
I'm only going to talk about this because the statute of limitations has expired.
And he already went to prison for it, probably. So you're fine.
Yeah. So we're good. We're good. And I'm going to say allegedly. So, we're just going to give me some ways out because it's funny, but it's truly, full circle. So, give or take 2004 and 5, I am back from being a professional athlete. And I'm working nights in Chicago in a bar called named Spy Bar. And at the time, Spy Bar's chief bouncer was no other than Mel Chancey, at the time, bit more involved with leather jackets and everything else. But I mean, he's big now, but back then, man, you couldn't go around him through the door. It was just not, and he's tanned. He's always been a great looking guy. It's just like, in Chicago, it's like that is like an icon view that you have at Spy Bar,
Yeah.
Mel Chancey. So he was my boss in a way. I mean, I work a couple of nights a week. It's Greek owned, and I have some Greek heritage to it that I live there. And my first testosterone, my first cycle, and I'm not going to admit to this, but I think it was testosterone 250 that he at the time had told me that it was tested by, or he has the same supplier as some of the pros, the bodybuilding pros.
Yeah. God.
I'm not admitting to shit, man. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
But allegedly, can't confirm or deny that it helped me or didn't help me.
Yeah.
But here we are, 20 years later.
I know that's so
Technically,
crazy.
I'm still getting my, my Cypionate from him.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. But he's not proud of those days, and he advocates heavily against black market stuff now. Because he understands it, and as we get older, our bodies aren't as resilient as it was back in the day. And for me, that's part of Mel Chancey's journey. I knew a counterpart of Mel from Massachusetts, the president there that I grew up around, and knew of Mel, and obviously I'm very close with Mel. And the things he has been, just the dynamic change of Mel is just, it's like watching the most fluid dance in the world. His transition from, being that president of the Hells Angels and being this monster that, everyone really feared. Now everyone just freaking loves. And, the fact that he, was doing things that were on the dark side, and now does everything so well, so properly, so legally on the proper side, just makes me so proud of him, because this, being around criminals, 99% of criminals don't end up the same way as Mel did. And he's amazing. Well, that's just an awesome.
Just to that, I'll tell you this, man. I mean, at the time, I was an athlete. I just graduated college, so I was going to become a professional athlete, and he knew a lot. I mean, it wasn't just bro science. It wasn't just like, here you go, bro. This is it. You start with D balls and you go with sus. It wasn't just like, because everybody else was doing that, and I told him, I said, listen, man. I mean, I'm doing summers. I go back and I play water polo. And it's a completely different muscle mass and endurance and lactic acids. He didn't care about those at the time, but he just gave me. But he did give me stuff that it was almost tailored, somewhat like core medical. I'm not gonna confirm or deny.
Got you.
More.
So you end up in California on a motorcycle, and I rode for years too, and I appreciate the passion. I gave it up about 4 years back. And you tell us about, I mean, I'm sure you dealt with quite a few interesting characters as a trooper and a police officer there, but I mean, on a bike there. But tell us about your transition from being a trooper into the agency as a Fed, and how that came to be, because that's really interesting to me.
Um, so this is at the time the way it was. I'm not sure if it's currently that way, but you have to remember this is wartime. This is past. This is 2008, 9, 10, and we are actively pursuing this war, but also the economy is not doing that well here. So we have a lot of um, components and a lot of theaters that everybody understands exist. So with that being said, I spoke, still do, different languages other than Spanish. And in California, in order to be certified to, in order to get more money as a police officer, as a bilingual, you need to be court certified and or federally certified for that language. So if FBI needs a guy, you will be the one. So at the time, the way that I applied was straight up. I just wanted that FBI little pin on my badge and the extra pay. So as I went through the process, FBI at the time was just like, "Hey man, you want to be?" And let me put this back. I just finished Chicago police training, field training. 16 months on a dot, I became a California candidate. 16 months on a dot there. So I was just like in one academy, just finished one academy. And they said, "Hey, you want to go through an FBI academy and you can become a Fed?" So, in between 3 years, it's three academies. And I was just like, yeah, I'll be a Fed. Shit. So, with my background, so I was born in Bosnia, but I traveled a lot. I have family practically all around that region, and I speak most of those languages from young age. So not really necessarily native, but I could pass as a native that lived in America for a longer time. I got assigned to a unit that did at first was organized crime, and then it became violent crime, and then became counterterrorism. Um, Meaning, I just started working for those places, for those groups within the FBI, and then I think 3 years later, the deployments came in where, and let me explain this to your listeners. The FBI, if a crime is originating in the United States and if it's meant to finish or be acted out in United States, FBI has jurisdiction. If it's planned in Bosnia or Spain or whatever, but it's going to be acted out in the United States, then FBI has jurisdiction to pursue, to gather intelligence, to investigate, the Bureau of Investigation. Same thing, if a U.S. citizen or U.S. soil presence person wants to do any terrorism anywhere else, the FBI still has the jurisdiction to maneuver around that person. So at the time, I got involved um, with organizations that were able to connect dots between schools and refugee camps for recruiting. So refugee camps around the world, per UN or whomever at the time is, Amnesty International, always have schools, English schools or French schools, mostly English, for the refugees who are there to be kind of starting to assimilate towards their new life in whatever they're going. And man, that was difficult. I'm reliving it back, but I became an English teacher in those refugee camps around the world. I Southeast Turkey, Northwest Iraq, and Afghanistan is where I operated as a teacher. I mean, straight up English teacher, ESL, whatever it's here. ABCs and I'm a teapot, all of those things that I had to
I got
do.
you.
I mean, during the day, and I will prepare packages for whomever was interested in. Is there a kid or a parent that looks vulnerable for us that we can recruit, that they have connections, and or is there a kid that's too angry against this, and if it's recruited, it now, because it's in this pipeline to come to United States or any other English speaking country, that people should be aware. So for 7 years, I that's what I did, man. I mean, I targeted undercover. And when I say targeted, that's a harsh word. But what I did was I essentially, in 14 camps, established this model of this person is either angry at West and hates the West, and if pursued, it will be difficult for him or her to say no, or this person really hates the people from his village that burned down his village and his mom or her mom, and he cannot wait to get back at them. So this is all like two different platforms where I had to check the boxes, thinking this guy fits to this or that. And then the second step to that is who is coming to recruit these people.
Yeah.
I
Wow. I mean, that's insane. What a process. So, I mean,
you're living there, man. I mean, you are embedded living. There is. I mean, I kind of take pride that I had no office, man. I mean, I ran an in intelligence gathering operation without a lock. I mean, I lived as them. I prayed as them. I ate as them. I socialized as. I mean, for 7 years. Funny thing is, when I came back to the United States, I didn't know what Tinder is, man. I had no idea.
well, you didn't miss much.
Well, but the thing is, I came back and they're like, swipe left. I'm like, swipe left? For what? Like, what do you mean? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a few friends that have done some time in prison, and when a few of them came out and there was like an iPhone, they're like, "What the hell is this? And how does this even work?" They hear about it. Technology is changing so much, and for you to be over in countries that are third world like that are so behind the eight ball compared to the United States, that transition must have been really hard for you. Not only the transition there, but back with your family. I mean, you're gone for quite some time, isn't that correct?
Yeah. Well, it's, and this is, and I'm sure we'll tie this into, you know, core medical, but when, if you remember watching Donnie Brasco and like how they say like, well, you're too, at one point of time, one of the FBI agents tell him, well, you're too deep to even know which side is up. And that is very telling, because when you live amongst population that is straight up just disadvantaged by life. I mean, it's, they're not combatants. This is refugee camps. This is, not, I mean, not but what as currently, or like this is all military age men. At that time, this was people who really had nowhere else to go, who just lost more than more than half of they ever had, population wise, family wise, monetary, everything. And they are now trying to focus their energy to go to a different country and start all over again. So when you live with them, you understand how much they can reason with things that seems as if America is really doing this to them.
Yeah,
Like, when, I mean, it's not
yeah.
crazy when you don't have any other feedback or perspective of why certain things are done. I remember one time the Marines dropped off by mistake, a complete mistake, but a Marine Osprey dropped off ammunition that landed right in the middle of um, ISIS territory. It's a mistake. We all know it's a mistake. It's. I
Well,
mean,
maybe
that
not
dude is
after.
probably.
Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Who knows? But go
Well,
on.
but that's the thing. I mean, at the
Yeah,
time, it's just
yeah,
like
yeah. Got
I
it.
looked at the coordinates and I saw there was 1 and 7. Like the dude either read the 7 or he read the 1.
Oh
I
shit.
went back to see what's going on, but in the camp, it was just like the Americans are feeding ISIS so they can kill us. And if you don't
Oh
understand how this works, you're like, yeah, man. I mean, like they just dropped off ammunition. I mean, the you know the everybody saw it. You
yeah.
know, it didn't look like a mistake. So when you live with that, you know, you start sympathizing more than just empathy. Just that you really start sympathizing, saying like, man, this is really fucked up. I mean, they have nowhere to go now, or like the ISIS now has the ammunition that didn't have before, and coming back. Once I realized of how many of those people who really wanted to make a change in their life, a difference in their life, who didn't have any other choice. I mean, it's easy for us Americans to say like, well, they could have stood up. There's nothing to stand against in ISIS territories at the time. As soon as you stand up, they'll kill you. It's not even, like they should have said no. It's just like, no, man. If you don't say yes, you're dead. There is no like, it's like in the prisons, like you fight for the color. There's no like, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not mind my own business. Like you
Yeah.
just like you mind your own business, but there was a fight. You have to stick with your own.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a good analogy. I mean, the aggression there is, listen, if you don't go fight and do this, we'll kill your whole family. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and which is wow. So while we're on this topic, before we roll into the next one,
sure.
I see the American flags in the background.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I believe that you're a strong patriot for the United
Thank you.
States, and I have this conversation consistently going on with my peers about uh, kids in the United States now versus when I was a child. I'll be 45 next month. And the lack of gratitude for the United States and what has gone on here. What's your take on that um, to the to how weak the United States has gotten as far as the generations coming up? And what's your message, because you've been through so much, you've seen so much, and you know how lucky these kids are in the United States. Even from where you probably grew up, the United States, you have a choice to go anywhere in the world. You stayed in the
Sure.
United States, and I just really like to hear your feedback on that. I know it's a little bit off subject,
No
but I
problem.
feel like you have a great message for that, and I haven't even heard it yet. So,
Well, before I, you know, say anything, I just want to give a perspective of where this is coming from. So there's, I'm sure internet trolls or fact checkers going to have their idea, but it's just while I was deployed or while I worked for law enforcement, I went through 5 passport books. Every book has 24 pages. Each page holds around 7 to 8 passport stamps. So I went through 5. That's how many countries or visitations I've taken in my career, not my personal life before or after. So I'm just, altogether, this is my 7th passport book. So I've been around. That's all I wanted to establish, not anything else. And what I keep telling my kids, I have two, and all my friends is, this is the only place on this planet. This system is the only system on this planet that will let you single, like in your lifetime, you can achieve and enjoy. There is no other system. There is no other system where you can achieve and enjoy. You can do well in your life, but you have to sacrifice so much in many other countries. And then your kids maybe will enjoy what you have achieved, and if they sacrifice enough, your grandkids, so the third generation at the time, will be able to enjoy life of your sacrifices because it's controlled so well. I have I mean, flags, but I also have the Constitution on me, tattooed on me. And to me, Constitution in itself is a map for success. I mean, it's not limiting. It's one of the only legal documents in the world, if you put it in the perspective of Constitution of other countries, where it's not limiting. It's telling you what you can do. You know, you have a right to. You have a right to assemble. You have a right to talk. You have a right. It's not like you cannot do this and you cannot do that. And it's, freedom of religion. It's not said you cannot practice religion. It's just, even the wording at the time, it's so setting, so giving for you to do whatever you want to do. People always kind of, and now it's kind of lost that you can be a millionaire by OnlyFans.
Yeah, not
I
me,
mean,
but other people.
allegedly. But it's a gift, man. I mean, you cannot do that. It's not accepted anywhere else.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I mean, you'll be killed in most of the world
Yep.
by your family, and you'll be disowned by 90% of the families in the world. Here, it's just like you can still do it.
Yeah,
And
the stepfather's subscribing to the daughter's fucking OnlyFans page here, and it's fine, you know.
yeah, and I say that as really lovingly, because America has never been about limitations as much as it's been shoved down our throats lately, as it's all about limiting. It's just in this past, I would say, that maybe 18 years, all we have is little by little of separation and segregation of places that don't belong. I mean, like, it's just like when people talk about police officers or firefighters, when you get that report, I was a volunteer firefighter, man. It never says it's a white family. It never says it's a black family. All I hear is an address, and I go with the white guys and black guys. And it's, the thing is, I've said this before. One of my one of my duties was to be able to constantly have platform for special operators to come in and go to use. So I will create a plausible deniability for them to be there, or create a plausible deniability for firearms to be discharged. As like, I will get a hunting permit and say, like, I like hunting, even though I'll never go hunt. If somebody needs to do, if operation needs a sniper shot, it wouldn't be out of norm because that teacher has a hunting license. Maybe it's him, kind of thing.
Got it.
And when I did those things, it just I remember being so I lost my train of thought right now, but what was I saying right before this?
Yeah,
I'm so
that
sorry.
if there was a team that needed to come in, you get a hunting
Right
license.
before that, I was going somewhere.
You're talking about there was certain things that you would do so that certain operators could come in to.
No, there was a reason why I was trying to tie in, because I could do those things, but oh man, I'll remember to hunt me now. I'm
It's
sorry,
fine,
but the
man.
reason,
There's so much like amazing information here, and you have an amazing guest when they have so many stories and so many like amazing facts to tell the listeners that they get caught up. So it's like it's definitely cool. We can also back and cut out stuff, so it's super easy.
no problem. If I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'll
Please.
love to.
So before we get into where your life went when you got out of operating and working with other operators, what were some of, other than the ones that you told me direct, either as a police officer, as a Fed? I believe that you were involved in one of the largest operations in the Chicago area. Can you tell us about that, or was that?
Sure. Yeah. It was it was a national operation, and what happened was, the FBI understood at the time that most of the drugs were coming from Mexico with obviously, but it's like a highway. I mean, it's not it's a route, so it's not a unknown thing now. But back then, people didn't realize that there was a structured delivery system all the way from Sinaloa to Chicago, and Chicago being it one of the bigger places for it to end. And without going too much of trying to sound like a big headed, but like unstepped and stepped drugs are the purity of it. On the street, they call it stepped or unstepped when they mix it for whatever it's coming from, Colombia or Mexico. And the further north it comes, it's either more expensive because they had to use more people to bring it and more resources, or it's not as pure because it's been stepped down, meaning it's been mixed with other things to come to Chicago. So at the time, I was known as this well, I was known as this dude that worked for the bureau, but just like was disgruntled and like wasn't making enough money, and I needed to kind of I wanted to do more. But because I was a Fed or federal, not agent, but federal worker, I kind of knew the system enough that I will never get busted. And now looking back now, it's like I really don't know how I pulled this off, but like they really believed me, man. And I started traveling. I started being a mule for the cartel, flying their weed around the country because they really thought that I was a federal employee, a translator who needed money and is like doing this on the side. Well, it got really serious that to the point they kind of started offering me to fly to Australia, and I was like, I cannot do that. And the dudes at the, my boss would be like, "Are you serious, man?" I'm like, I mean, I'm at this point, this is an operation. They're
When did you
gathering
become a
information.
pilot? Because I know you're a pilot now. You fly quite a bit now. But when did you become a pilot during all of this? It's like you're playing pro sports. You go to college.
Yeah,
You're
so
like
funny.
I don't know
Yeah,
where you find the
so
time.
I was a pilot.
Five passports. It's like, dude, do you
Yeah,
sleep?
well, I have no social life, but
Okay.
nevertheless, so I was in flight school on September 11, man, and I was on the runway of a flight school September 11, 2001, when they announced everybody clear. So I had my license. It just it became too expensive because I had to leave. It's called the Part 141 schools where you kind of go as a college,
Yep.
and I just didn't think, like, with my background not being American born at the time, it was really difficult to pass. Funny, this that came very handy later, and
Yeah.
that's where I believe in God.
Yeah.
They start questioning, why do I want to be a pilot?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I quit and I went and graduated in math because I had all the science credits, but I had my pilot's license from when I was 19.
Okay.
And later on, when I became a Fed, my background check was super easy because they
Yeah.
knew everything about me
Yeah.
from like 2 years ago.
So when you're muling all this stuff back and forth, I mean, how did they not figure any of this out? I mean, you have such a pedigree from the past as a so you really played it off properly, and now they're wanting you to go to Australia. You say no. How does and are you just building this case at this point?
Oh yeah, we were building the case, and I'm not really saying no. I'm just saying I need bigger cut. So like which then increases the load, which then becomes worthy of FBI's time. Otherwise, it's just like it's too many resources. And I said, I will do it for 500,000, and I will fly it. I will fly Australia, Japan, Australia. Was were they needed to move money. Cartel headed to move money, not drugs, from Australia to Japan. And like the initiation for that was for me to fly cocaine from Mexico to Chicago. And when I told this to you know, once I came back to my office, like my supervisor, who wasn't really fond of me too much, he was just like, "This dude, man, I mean, like too much paperwork. He's flying.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like the fuck he wants."
Uh-huh.
His eyes were this big, man. He was like, "I cannot believe you are telling them you're a Fed. Like they didn't kill you yet." And I mean, I will show them a badge. Like they will follow me to FBI, and I never. I mean, the only thing that I lied to them was that I was a full fledged agent, not a translator.
Got you. Got it.
And I think at the time, if I told them I was an agent, they would have trusted me even more. But it just, I had a couple of injuries, and we faked my well, we not faked.
Updated.
We produced medical expenses that I had to cover. And everybody knows that medical health is super expensive. So I had a couple of surgeries that I had to go through, and instead of making it look as if my insurance covered it, um, I had bills laying around at home that showed that I really need this money, and this is what I'm doing. So it's not really even to, like, you know, buy a flashy car. So I was more trusted at the time than the dealers that I was supplying, because to them they knew I had to pay this off, and then being as a federal employee, they knew I had to have this off my back if I wanted to go forward in my life. That was my, as we call it, legend. And lo and behold, man, I had 37 kilos that I was flying, 38, but 37 because one was for me. Um, 37 kilos that I was flying from Sinaloa to Palm Beach, and then from Palm Beach to Chicago. And what happened during that flight is I will stop at certain places to deliver, because it's a delivery system. And that was one of the most dangerous things I've done with cartel, because I had to trust local police officers and local
Agencies.
agency, our guys, which are not. I mean, and I want to tell this to everybody. FBI works out of 10% of talent and 90% of people who don't do anything. So there are people who never leave the street. There are people who never even carry a gun in the FBI. So you have 10% of agents who are incredibly dedicated to what they do, and they became an agent because they always wanted to. And then there's 90% of the people there that just don't belong in anywhere next to a gun or a badge or anything with integrity. That's what I'm gonna say. So with that in my back of my mind, I was stopping in all these places, and the local agencies will pick up these dealers and they flip them, and because it had to happen before I stop at the next
Next one.
stop and or the last stop, because they will pull the plug. So every time I made a stop, I stopped. I was, I mean, really fearing for my life, because I don't know if this next stop people know that at this
Oof.
point they're all being picked up behind me. So every stop, you know, you're nervous, but it's dark at night, and it, I mean, looking back, I felt like a badass. I mean, you know, that moving American Made, that was me. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just like, bring it, man, you know, like.
Yeah.
But you have all that coke in the back and 600 pounds of weed, just because they're like, you keep it, and they were like so nice to me. This is the problem, man. Like the dudes in Mexico, they were so nice. They were like, you know what, man, you're taking such a risk. Off you fucking go, man. You can make money off of this.
Oh
And here it
shit.
is. Like if I was to file an overtime in the FBI, they're like, wait a second, why?
Because I've just
So,
built this relationship in Mexico that no one in the history of the FBI has ever done. That's why. Yeah. So.
but again, it's just like, you know, when you live with the targets, you understand that some of them are such nice people. Like
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
they care about me and my health more than at the time government did.
Yeah, I mean that's funny that you say that because Mel's best friends with the two agents that put him in prison for 10 years, and he's like they were just such nice guys. I just didn't even I just took it over the head and did my time and came out. And now they're like having Thanksgiving dinner at my house every year, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy that you said. So then when you accomplish that big initiation is where the final chapter came, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So when I did that, I split from the when that finished, I split for my own reasons. It wasn't safety reasons, it was just I became too known, and it was a good time to introduce different agents. So I introduced, as I created the plausible deniability, I created friends at different airports that they can use, and there will be agents. And but we uncovered that at the time, people who sell drugs in Midwest were funding recruitment in Middle East,
Uh huh.
and that's where all those got connected. Because then I became, I'm Catholic, but I became kind of like, interested in Islam,
Hmm.
um, allegedly, from my legend, and that's how I got connections to go to refugee camps, and I was trusted because I was sent by really really bad drug selling and really bad people
Uh
who
huh.
conducted businesses, legitimate businesses in Midwest mostly, but funded recruitment of terrorists and terrorist attacks around the world. They didn't care. It wasn't. I mean, they were just funding the schools and camps in Middle East, and that's the connections I was trying to make federally. If any of those people funded in Middle East ever um, came to United States, and or any of those planes were ever going to affect United States. So for 7 years, that was my main job, to control that bridge. But then it just flowered into many, many other little connections and operations that I had full access to because I was already kind of embedded coming in. I didn't have to, people just said, this guy is good. We trust him from, America.
Yeah.
So when I showed up in Iraq, it was like, yeah, they trust him. Our people trust him there. He's good. We don't need to he doesn't have to do
Y-
crazy stuff to earn our trust.
Yeah, you broke the barrier down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that affected my life completely because for 7 years, man, I never came back home.
Oof.
I mean, never. If I was gone for a day or two, the distance from, any of those places to fly to Chicago, I can't even make it on the same flight. So I would meet my parents all around the world where, Chicago had a direct flight to London. And I from Istanbul can fly to London and spend the day with them and then fly back and be back in the same day. So it's just like, yeah, he was in Istanbul for, talking, meeting, whatever. They will never know that I was gone
Yeah.
for longer.
Well, your parents must have been a nervous wreck if they knew what was going on. Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't.
I'm an only child, man. So my mom
So
was
am I.
not really,
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure on them. So so man, thanks for telling these stories and educating people on kind of what goes on behind the scenes. I have gratitude for the vulnerability and the amazing things that you've expressed. So when you left and you came back, obviously I kind of know the story. Things, and you kind of came back into the civilian world and in the United States. How hard was that transition?
Oh man. I'm gonna get emotional here. I'm gonna start crying because it was probably the hardest thing in my life. I mean, I first of all, I didn't think I belong here anymore. I've established a life. Not that I became sympathizer, but it's just like I established a very fast-paced life
Mm.
where, as a civilian, that's not achievable. It's just not achievable in the United States, or anywhere else for that matter. And
Uh-huh.
then I had access to a lot of money to help and to live the life that I wanted. And then all of a sudden it's just like, what do you mean I cannot go to Italy for coffee? Like,
Got it.
like what's going on?
Yeah.
But on the other side, I was because I was aware of evil, and when I say evil, I mean evil, evil. They're evil people, very few, but they're evil people who constantly are looking for opportunity to hurt Americans. It's a fact. I don't live in this paranoid state where I think
What just happened? Did you see
I
that?
have no idea.
That's
Did you
great.
see it?
That was great. Well,
I thought you guys were doing
we'll
that.
keep that in there. All right, cool.
I
Go
hope you
ahead.
do.
Yeah,
Shit.
it looked great with a flag in the back. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't live in this paranoid state where I think like we're gonna get attacked tonight and we have to do. I do not, but it just I'm very well aware that some people dedicate their life to kill Americans. It doesn't matter white, black, Republican, or Democrat. It doesn't matter one bit to them. They've dedicated their lives and all of their energy to that. So once I realized that that exists, when I came back and I mean, I lived in Washington D.C. and it was horrible, man. I just like because I didn't have a PhD at the time, and like it was just like they wouldn't listen to me. It's just like
Yeah, yeah.
it was not, and people were just ignorant to the fact that evil exists. Now, if you multiply that with allegedly using Mel Chancey cocktail for longer time, and then you stop,
Yep.
like cold
Massive,
turkey stop.
massive depression.
I mean, massive
Yeah, I
depression,
mean, I
and
see it all the time. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't reason myself to get up out of my bed to go brush my teeth. It was just like I'm so I felt so hollow. It was just like there's no point of this. I should just die and end this. I mean, this misery, this pain. There was nothing I can do correctly. I talk to people and they don't understand me. I try to do what makes me happy, and I'm the only one doing it. Like I'm the only one that wants to work out. I'm the only one that doesn't want to drink. I'm the only one, and some people want to drink. I just didn't want to drink at all. I was just like I just wanted to exist, and it was against everything that lived around me, to the point where I just made I and this is, I guess we'll come to this, but I wrote letters to all of my loved ones. I At this time I was married and I had my firstborn, and I decided that I was going to drive away from my wife and my kid, just to a different city, so it's not in the same place, so she cannot find me. And I'm a big watch guy, and I gave my watches to all of my loved friends. I mean, I kind of went out of my way to have lunches and dinners and coffees with friends that I cared for, and I thought they cared for me. And I bought a body bag. I rented a room. I went to the room. I had my Glock. I had a single one 9 millimeter cartridge that I brought back from Afghanistan. It was I'll just tie this in, but there was a guy that was trying to kill me at the time. That's why I had to leave Afghanistan, because my cover was blown. And when they got him, I got his bullet out of his person from his kit. And I was just like, I don't know why. I mean, it's pretty psychotic. It's like now looking back, it's just fucking crazy. But I was so low and so desperate to end the pain that I was in that I just wanted to kill myself and not bother anyone. So I that's why I had the body bag. I put it in the bathtub. I was gonna sit in the bathtub, close the body bag, and discharge it with the note on the body bag calling 911. I mean, call 911, and nobody had to be bothered with what I've done. I just felt like I was unnecessary. My existence was unnecessary. There's nothing. I had nothing more to give, and I had nothing more to get in life. I
Mhm.
was just like I didn't think I mean, because I didn't have any testosterone, now I know this. I couldn't even lift my kid up, man. I mean, a brand new baby, I was so tired. Like I will read newspaper paragraph and fall asleep.
Yeah.
And as I planned all of this, I got a book in my hand, and I hope you can lift it up because you have it.
Yeah. So, gotta go that way, the opposite over here. Yeah, this book right here, and
And I cannot tell you how I got that. I don't remember. I got that book and I read it in one day, cover to cover. And it's Nick, uh, and he explains his journey, how he went through being abandoned by Marines, essentially. Now, what people need to understand when you are in DoD world, you have DoD friends. When you are, the not that you have them all, but you kind of have a place that you belong.
yeah,
I was a veteran from a DOJ status where I never fit in with the DOJ people because I was always attached to DOD people
yeah,
and Justice Department and military. So I was always this rugged dude that never really fit in with the agent cookie cutter.
yeah,
But on the other side, when I was attached to operatives, I was always the civilian DOJ guy.
yeah. I got
So
you.
I never really, I mean, I was friends, a lot more friends with I mean, till this day, all of my friends are special operations guys and operators and military personnel. Very, fuck, man. I mean, I have one FBI friend, one. That's it.
Wow.
And, and, and it just like I associated and related to Nick because it was just like in his book, he vividly says how that door behind him
When he
closed.
turned in his paperwork, when he was walking in the door, and no,
Yeah.
6 months
He
before
couldn't go back
he'd
in.
walk in, he was a fucking hero, and now that he was done, he was walking out that door, and it was like just chapter over. Go fuck yourself. Go figure it out. Which he
Absolutely.
fucking figured it out, but
He sure did. Yeah.
he
Yes.
fucking figured it out.
But it's the same, man. I mean, I walked into to you know, do my paperwork, leave my badge and gun, and I mean, I walk in there like Elliot Ness is a bitch comparing next to me, man. There should be a movie. Like, where do I fucking sign? Like, I don't know, is Tom Cruise available to play me in my head?
Yeah, yeah.
And once they took my stuff, and then I realized I have to be escorted out of the building because it's just I'm not no longer a worker. I'm a civilian now. Like it just became like what I mean. The dude didn't grab me out and escorted me, but just like that down on me, like you're not one of us anymore, man.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was not. And for all other purposes, I really never was one of them. I mean, I never operated out of that building. I never, like, I was attached to the military, and I had nothing else to get in life, man. I had nothing else to give. I had nothing else to get. But I read that book, and I read how Nick understood the importance of your testosterone. Now I understand the importance of testosterone. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
but I just didn't realize
But it
that
does.
what it
How
does,
what it
what
does
absence does.
when you don't have it. I
Yes.
mean, 70. So, um, from the statistics that we see and that we follow quite a bit, and I have a suicide prevention foundation that we do a lot of work with, and 70% of military veterans that commit suicide have low testosterone, and
Oh, for sure.
that low testosterone is actually in range, but the bottom of range, and the VA is like, oh, screw you, you have a 364, and the range is 350. And they're 35 years old. They can't have sex with their wife, can't play with their kids, can't find a job, can't think straight. Guess what? Their brothers now are all over the country. Some of them are still operating. They feel like they should still be operating, and then it ends real fucking bad, man. And I
And the change is so fast, man. I mean, when the testosterone dips, but I also feel, and now that I can look back, like you feel a little sorry for yourself at 400, and like when you drop down to 300, that drop is like within days.
Yep.
But you go from like, you know what, man, I maybe tomorrow I'll work out to like, I just need to die in a day from that testosterone drop. Maybe two.
So you had I mean, I hate to play this back again because I've heard it twice now, and when I hung up with you yesterday, I I I was thinking to myself, and it's hard for me to do. I have this beautiful 4-year-old that was actually playing when I was on the phone with you, and then when you told me that you had kids and you left your wife, and this kind of system that you set up to commit suicide was in place. I look at my daughter and I'm like, damn, man, like this guy's a pretty badass dude. Nick was a pretty badass dude. Jason Redman, pretty badass dude. Lou Velosi, pretty badass dude. Byron Rogers, pretty badass dude. All of them, every single one, witnessed a very similar situation that you were in with children.
Yeah.
And it's like where does it stop? I mean, and it's not here from the VA, take all this medication and go into this deep depression even more. It's like, here, just take this shot once a week with your estrogen blockers, and this is gonna be a lot better for you. And
Yeah.
it's very basic, but it's too basic. There's not enough money behind it. And I listen, I celebrate Nick like constantly because the amount of DMs that I get from this book, like, and I'm not a reader just because I'm not that educated. I'm a book on tape kind of guy. But
Sure.
from this book, I mean, this book has saved a lot of fucking lives, like a lot
Yeah.
of lives. And the reason being is because there's real answers in here from a guy that has been at the point of no return. And if you look at him from the point of no return, which there's before and afters all over social media, to now, it's like, oh my gosh. Like, and
Yeah.
he's worked on himself so much. Like, I've known him for 7 years now. And, you know, was his attitude great when I first met him? No. He still had the arrogance a little bit, but you meet him now, he's like a loving, caring, will help anybody type of dude. And his development, because he took the initiative to find out what was wrong and fix it, is really what makes Nick the man that he is today, is because he took the time to figure it out and didn't quit on himself. So, I mean, and the same for you, man. It's like, I don't know how that book ended up either, because you don't, but yeah, I
No
mean,
idea.
thank God for it, because
And the very next day, I called and I spoke to my hero and your best employee, Mike Arrow.
he's the best, right?
He is, man.
Yeah, he's great. So, have you spoken to Nick ever, or are you guys friendly, or?
I thought I've never spoken to him. I don't think he knows my story this closely.
Okay. Yeah, well, the cat will be out of the bag here soon. So, all right, man, thanks for that. So now I want to get into the success between the lull from the prior success, and so I feel bad if you bring this up. So I'm 45 years old. I ran my first half marathon with Mike Arrow 3 weeks ago. Never ran more than
Wow.
like 2 miles in my life. Trained for 45 days. It was a challenge. Someone said to me, men over the age of 45, only 3% will ever run a half marathon again. So Mike found a marathon and signed me up, and we ran it together in 2 hours and 1 minute. So we
Hell yeah.
we actually did pretty good. But I want you to talk about your journey after success with changing your hormone dynamic. Obviously, your faith has something to do with it.
Yeah.
You're working out. You look amazing. I follow you on social media. We have a lot of things in common: firearms and our love for cardiovascular endurance workouts and things like that. So after you meet Mike Arrow and you end up with Core Medical Group, and you find a passion again for life, and that passion has just gone through the roof based on your achievements in the last years. Tell us about it. And this is the most important part of the story, because it's the success story of what can happen when you get dialed in life and pay attention to the positives and not the negatives, and ask for help.
So, I mean, it truly is a brand new. It's like, Luke 2.0. because I've always been an endurance athlete. I always swam. I rowed my whole life. I have a rowing machine at home, and I just started rowing. I mean, at the time, we were living in a building complex that had a rowing machine in a basement, and this is the thing. It's funny. This is going to be a good one because I didn't even tell you this. This is going to be a surprise for you and for everybody else. So I just started rowing, man. I um, got my testosterone back. I couldn't leave because we have this kid, my favorite. Uh,
This kid, that's
this
that's what
kid.
I do. I call her my trophy. My wife wants to kill me sometimes. There's
Yeah,
a
I call her number one, number two, man. I have number one and number two,
yeah.
and like it is what it is. But anyways, so I stayed with my kid, and I will just go and row, and I will turn off all the lights, and I will just sit. Until this day, I still do it. I will just sit down and row. And let me show you something. You didn't know this because this is a great surprise, but I qualified for Olympic team in Tokyo because of core medical. I was qualifying time to be a qualified qualifier. I rode hours upon hours upon hours, just reflecting back and being thankful that I can do this. I mean, like I will roll 4 hours at the time and just pitch black, man, to the point where like I will
Wow.
lose and then when I took the race, Um, and there was, I mean, I'm going to give all the credit to people that deserve this. In 2019, September is when I qualified. It's a qualifying time. People who really want to go to the Olympics qualified 2 to 3 months before. So this was their beginning of the season. I
Yeah.
peaked, and but the thing is, because of COVID, nobody had the 2020 qualification, so I was still on the roster
Oh
as the
shit.
qual. Hey man, I'll take it. I am a qualifier.
Yeah.
And I mean, straight up because of you guys. So as I realized that I can do this again. I realized that I can be the part of me that I always enjoyed is back. It never left me. I maybe I will not be an operator again. Maybe I will not be a drug dealer again. But I can be me. I can be whatever I want physically.
Yep.
And I then that transition into swimming, and I started swimming open water, which I never done before. I played water polo, but it's in the pool. And then I dedicated myself to representing veterans. So 2 years now, I swim 13 miles for 13 Fallen for the Afghanistan pullout, and it's about 7.5 to 8 hours swim. This year is when I'm trying to break the Guinness World Record for the highest elevation. 13-mile swim is going to be in Oregon at 5,000 elevation on the 24th.
And is there a link up for that for people to sponsor that? How does that work?
Link, yeah, it's Link is coming up because prior to that, I'm swimming with the Navy SEALs around the
Oh, the seal swim?
yes, sir.
Jason Redman tried to talk me into that this year, but
Come on by, man. I'll pull you.
no, no, I bet you could. I'm going to be in Saskatchewan, Canada, bear hunting. So,
Is Jason going?
Jason will be there. Yeah, he swims it every year. I believe he top. I think he placed like very well last year. He's still a very strong swimmer. He swims. He's amazing. He's in some very good shape right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he swims it every
Well,
year. And he's been trying to get me to. He tried to get me to do it this year, and I didn't. But I will make a commitment in the next 2 years to do that swim. So and
I'll do it with you, man.
perfect, perfect, perfect. I'll talk Mike Arrow into it when he turns 40.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, man. And I'm 43, man. So I'm not really, I'm not that young. It's all this core medical group thing that I take that just like it's for the skin, for
Yeah,
hair.
it makes you
Just talk to
beautiful.
Mike Arrow.
Yeah. So So we'll definitely help promote that fundraiser however we
The
can.
fundraiser for that is Hunter Lopez Foundation. It's
Okay.
ran by Hunter Lopez is one of the fallen. His mom runs it.
Okay.
So they will the link to that is straight up
On
that
their
I
page.
mean, I have nothing to do with it.
No, of course.
Meaning, yeah. So it's whoever is interested of learning Hunter's story. He was a Marine that was at Abbey Gate. The reason why that is the very personal to me is when I lived in Afghanistan, I mean, my condo, my room was in Azizi Plaza, which is across the street from the highway, from the airport, looking at AB Gate, man. I mean, I looked at that gate for 3 years, and these people, I mean, these kids were there for 3 days and died, and I live with the guilt of, I had that survival guilt that, for 3 years, 1,000 days, nothing happened to me.
Oof.
And then these kids go in and day three, and under what circumstances. And now the new videos came out, and those are political things that I really don't want their names to be associated with.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I'm trying to break the Guinness World Record. So it is going to be 13 miles for 13 fallen. So if their names are ever searched, I want it to come with something positive, not
Yeah,
just
that's amazing.
and not just something embarrassing that has happened that caused their lives.
Yeah. Well, Luke, man, I got to tell you, this was the most. I mean, I've been fighting tears, laughing, been stuck for words during this podcast, man. And your message is just awesome. It's just for me, I'm surrounded by a lot of a lot of greatness, from these Fortune 500 CEOs that have befriended me and taught me business. Pro athletes, fighters, operators, first responders, even just the guy that has the 9 to 5 that is spends the balance of his time helping others, and just to have like a big dude like you that's accomplished so much that has vulnerability, that's not scared to express how close it was to not having you around anymore is just it's just amazing to me, and my father committed suicide, and for me, the ripple effect of suicide for me is very difficult because now I have to explain to my daughter. I already did my 17-year-old daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, where her grandfather is on my side of the family. I had
Yeah.
to deal with a very difficult thing at 24 years old, and you're asking yourself constant questions, and I applaud you for not putting the people that love you through that. So, man, I got to tell you, I don't know you for long, but I love you to death, bro. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. And
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I don't feel worthy of your time, but
now, of course,
I,
you're
I'm
kidding
I am
me.
honored.
Well, I hope we can do some stuff in the future together. And
Absolutely.
I'll be there to support any swims that you have. And I'd love to have you at the event next year in February. And
Yes, sir.
I'll probably maybe stop in and see you at your signature
Please
location
do.
here in the next few
Please
months.
do.
So, Luke, again, man, much love, bro. And thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
on.
for having me, man.
All right,
Thank you
brother.
for everything you guys do. And I mean, again, this is your show, but I want to tell your viewers and listeners, I haven't been taken care of as good by anybody else before for medical. I mean, Mike is just, he understood me, he worked with me, and I felt safe taking anything that you guys said, and my life, I mean, catapulted, man. I mean, it didn't improve. Improvement is really an understatement, because I live again, and not just, I'm not surviving. I mean, I'm physically capable of what I was prior to.
Uh-huh.
And and it's just something that I can never. I mean, I'll do anything for you guys just for that reason alone, man. I mean, I'm able to hold my kids up. I'm able to do. I mean, able to fly. I'm able to swim. I'm able to, love. I'm able to love myself again, man. I mean, like, you would know, and all the people around you. Like my wife at the time was telling me, you don't look that different from like when you were an operator. I was benching 300 pounds, 100 reps a day for fun. That was my workout. Now, now I can't even lift a 10-pound kid. I'm like, you don't understand. It's not about me looking to you. It's about me feeling that I know that I can, you know, pull a car with me. Like
Yeah.
that's what my purpose was as a person, like forever. And I have also, and I also want to say this um lovingly, the suicide, and if somebody who's watching this is in, I'm going to look into the camera because I understand the pain. I understand that suicide is not punishment to anybody else, but getting rid of the pain that you carry. And it's not, that pain is not necessarily all you feel. There, there's more life that can teach you how to love yourself more than just to suffer in the pain that you have currently. So reach out to me or anybody, but you are not the pain that you feel. That's, I really want that note to be heard from people who need to hear it.
Well, that was a great message, and man, just brought tears to my eyes. So I again, man, thank you so much, and we really appreciate you. And I'll be in touch shortly. Luke. Thanks again, brother.
Yes, sir. Have fun, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.